Je déclare ouverte la session extraordinaire de l'Assemblée parlementaire du Conseil de l'Europe. Madame la secrétaire générale, Monsieur le secrétaire général adjoint, Madame la secrétaire générale de l'Assemblée parlementaire, Monsieur le président du Congrès des pouvoirs locaux et régionaux du Conseil de l'Europe, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs,
of the Assembly, parliamentarians. May I, first of all, welcome you all here in the chamber or online for this extraordinary session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. On the 24th of February last, in the early hours of the day, following a decision taken by the President of the Russian Federation, the Russian army illegally crossed the borders of neighboring Ukraine and started its armed attack on the people and on the state of Ukraine. Since then, thousands of Ukrainian people, men and women, have been killed or injured, and millions of Ukrainian citizens have had to leave their homes, seeking shelter elsewhere in Ukraine or across the borders of Ukraine. May I please ask you to raise for a moment of silence in respect of all these people who have become the victims of this brutal war that never should have started and therefore should now immediately stop. I ask you to rise.
merci.
Thank you.
Crossing the Ukrainian border, the Russian Federation also crossed the red line of this organization, which the Council of Europe formulated already in 1949 in its statute. Articles 1 and 3 make it obligatory that every member state of the Council of Europe must collaborate sincerely and effectively in the realization of the aim of the Council of Europe, which is to achieve greater unity between the members for the purpose of safeguarding the ideals and principles which are our common heritage. That is why our member state, Russia, was, within 3 days after the start of its armed aggression against Ukraine, suspended from its right to be represented in the statutory bodies of the Council of Europe, in this Parliamentary Assembly and the Committee of Ministers, and later in the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities. I thank the Committee of Ministers and its Italian chairmanship, as well as the leaders of our political groups, the chairpersons of our committees, and the leaders of our national delegations, that they were able and willing to act quickly and decisively in exemplary synergy together with the Secretary General of the Council of Europe at the moment when it was most needed. Since then, however, the military aggression of the Russian Federation did not halt but did continue. Due to this, devastating destruction in Ukraine goes on, and about 2.5 million citizens have already left Ukraine, seeking shelter in one of our member states. May I thank all member states for showing serious solidarity with the citizens of our member state, Ukraine, by granting these refugees access to their territories and providing them with first aid to make them survive for the time being. I want to thank the authorities of our member states, as well as their citizens, for showing a concrete solidarity with those who are now seeking shelter. This weekend, I personally witnessed here in Strasbourg and its surroundings ordinary people doing their utmost to collect as much direct support as possible. Dear colleagues, it's heartwarming action. Nevertheless, it is not enough. Much more aid has to be provided by our 46 member states and other states and international organizations. Today, tomorrow, and in the future, international solidarity is needed now and will be needed in the years to come, as the humanitarian consequences of armed aggression will be immense and will last long. I know that the Committee of Ministers and the Secretary General are working hard to organize more support within their possibilities. I'm sure that they will brief our Assembly later today about their attempts, their difficulties, and their results. Dear colleagues, as the Russian Federation did listen neither to our calls nor to those of the rest of the international community, first and foremost the United Nations, further possible action has to be examined. That is why I convened this extraordinary session of our Assembly, in which we, representing the remaining 46 member states of the Parliamentary Assembly, will thoroughly investigate the consequences of the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine, as proposed by the 5 political groups of our Assembly. After convening this session, I have received a letter from the chairperson of the Committee of Ministers' Deputies asking our Assembly to give, in accordance with statutory obligation 5130, a formal opinion on potential further use of Article 8 of the Statute of the Council of Europe. Article 8 says that any member of the Council of Europe which has seriously violated Article 3 may be suspended from its rights of representation and requested by the Committee of Ministers to withdraw. If such member does not comply with this request, the committee may decide that it has ceased to be a member of the Council, as from such date the committee may determine. Dear colleagues, last Friday, the Bureau of the Assembly, having heard the Presidential Committee's advice, decided to propose to the Assembly to give this statutory opinion asked by the Committee of Ministers during this extraordinary session, on the basis of a report that is now under preparation of the Political Affairs Committee. The committee has elected our colleague, Mr. Ingjerd Schou from Norway, as its rapporteur. I wish the rapporteur and the committee wisdom in preparing this most relevant opinion, which will be distributed later today to all members. I thank the Committee of Ministers for asking our opinion, in line with the statutory rules that govern our organization. Dear colleagues, our debate will have 2 components. Today, we will get information directly from Ukraine and from the Committee of Ministers and our Secretary General. Tomorrow, we will debate on the basis of all this and other available information the draft opinion prepared by the Political Affairs Committee. Our list of speakers will be longer than ever before. I'm grateful to our Secretary General of the Assembly that she managed to ensure that tomorrow's debate will already start at 9:30 in the morning and will be able to continue during all day until 8:30 in the evening. Together with my vice presidents, I will do my utmost to allow as many speakers as possible. I hope that you will understand that I will be very strict on the 3 minutes speaking time, in order to allow all speakers to participate in this most important debate, where we might have to take decisions which this Assembly until now was never asked to take in the past 7 decades. Dear colleagues, at the end of my opening remarks, I would especially welcome the members of the Ukrainian delegation, partly present here, partly connected online from Ukraine. I thank the Ukrainian delegation and its chairperson, Ms. Maria Mezentseva, for keeping me updated ever since the beginning of the military aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, about the consequences this aggression has. I also thank the Ukrainian authorities with whom we have been in contact during the past weeks and days. May I express the hope, on behalf of all of us, that this war will end and peace will come as soon as possible for all Ukrainian colleagues and all citizens of our beleaguered member state, Ukraine. If you share this hope, please stand and applaud for our Ukrainian colleagues. Thank you very much. Later, yes. Now, the first item on the agenda is the examination of credentials of new members. The names of new representatives and substitutes are in document 15473. If no credentials are challenged, the credentials will be ratified. Are any credentials challenged? That is not the case. Therefore, I declare the credentials set out in document 15473 are ratified, and I welcome our new colleagues. The next item on the agenda is to consider the changes proposed in the memberships of Assembly's committees. These are set out in document Commissions 2022-03. Are these proposals approved? I see no objection. The proposed changes in the membership of the committees are agreed to. The next item on the agenda is to consider the references to committees proposed by the Bureau for ratification by the Assembly in accordance with Rule 26(3) of the rules. The references are set out in document AS/info 202200. Are there any objections to these references? As I do not see any, the references are approved. Before we examine the draft agenda, the Assembly needs to consider a request for a debate under urgent procedure. The Bureau has received a request for a debate under urgent procedure on consequences of the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine on behalf of the 5 political groups. At its meeting of the 11th of March, the Bureau took note of the Minister's Deputy's decision of 10 March 2022 on the consequences of the aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine and of the request of the Committee of Ministers under Statutory Resolution 5130 to consult the Parliamentary Assembly on potential use of Article 8 for the Statute of the Council of Europe. The Bureau therefore decided to recommend to the Assembly to hold a debate on consequences on the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine and to consider and adopt within this debate the Assembly's opinion requested by the Committee of Ministers under Statutory Resolution 5130. We will now consider the request for a debate under urgent procedure. The Assembly needs to consider the request submitted by the 5 political groups for a debate under urgent procedure on consequences of the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine. At its meeting on Friday, the Bureau approved this request and therefore recommends to the Assembly that the matter be debated during this extraordinary session on Tuesday morning, with the debate continuing in the afternoon. Does the Assembly agree to this recommendation? I do not see any objection. Therefore, the Bureau's recommendation is accepted and the request for urgent procedure is therefore approved. I propose that the topic of the debate we just have agreed be referred to the Committee on Political Affairs and Democracy for report. Is this agreed? Don't see any objection. The reference is agreed to. The next item of business is the adoption of the agenda for the 2022 extraordinary session, which you find in document 15462, provisional 2. The draft agenda submitted for the agenda's approval was drawn up by the Bureau on the 25th of February and updated on the 11th of March. The Assembly has agreed to hold a debate on the urgent procedure tomorrow, and the deadline of amendments will be 8 p.m. this evening. The deadline for sub-amendments will be Tuesday morning, 10:30. The Bureau proposes that movers of amendments limit their presentation to 30 seconds. Does the Assembly agree with the agenda as we have discussed? It is agreed to. If you allow me to inform you that we have a change to the agenda, as President Zelenski, who I invited to participate in this session, has informed me that due to very urgent, unforeseen circumstances, he will not be able to address our Assembly now, and instead he has asked the Prime Minister of Ukraine to speak on his behalf. I propose that we take note of this message, and we have full understanding that the President of Ukraine is now under such time constraints that he could not make it at this moment, and we are eager to go to listen to the speech of the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Denis Shmyhal, later this morning. Then, Madam Secretary General of the Assembly, do you have any additional comments on the organization of the debates today? Is the Prime Minister of Ukraine now available? Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, now it's my honor to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Denis Shmyhal, the Prime Minister of by the Russian Federation against Ukraine and formulate, as we just decided, a statutory opinion at the request of the Committee of Ministers. Mr. Prime Minister, may I please give you the floor? with our next meeting. First, the Prime Minister of Ukraine, and then the Chair of the Committee of Ministers, and then our Secretary General. Sorry for this this change in our schedule, but we have to be aware that we are talking here about a country that is under aggression and is not able to schedule everything in a smooth way immediately. So I would like you to be back here at 4 o'clock to listen to the speech of the Prime Minister of Ukraine. Until then, the session is adjourned.